I too would like to recognise the diligence of the committee clerks in this process, our advisers, and to thank all of those who gave evidence to assist in our deliberations. And the committee was, of course, chaired with flair, firmness and fairness by Bruce Crawford, and I'm only sorry I've been unable to make him blush.
Oh, did you just come in for it? You've got flair.
Now, the committee was tasked with scrutinising the translation of the Smith Commission's recommendations into proposed law by the previous UK government. And as you've heard from committee colleagues, this scrutiny was undertaken in an atmosphere of mutual respect and with agreed determination that, and I quote from the report, both the letter and the spirit of the Smith Commission's report be fully translated into a legislative package. And a key conclusion can be reached by the committee can be found at paragraph 493 and states that in some of the areas the committee believes that the current draft legislative proposals fully translate the political agreement reached in the Smith Commission, but in other areas improvements in drafting and further clarification are required. In some critical areas, the then UK government's draft legislative clauses fall short. In the time I have today, I'm going to outline where the Scottish Green Party is content that the clauses meet the letter and the spirit, and where we believe they do not. And I'm also going to stress, and Jackie Baillie touched on this too, the need to broaden public engagement as widely as possible as this process moves forward. Presiding Officer, I think it's fair to say that we're having this debate today because during the referendum, the people of Scotland, regardless of what side they were on in the debate, became so involved in the debate about what kind of Scotland they wanted to live in. Some 18,000 plus emails were received during the Smith Commission process. Now, given the timescale, I think it's fairly likely that they won't have all received the consideration they perhaps deserved. And we'll never have all the time we wish, but there is a little more time now for engagement. And I think that level of engagement illustrates that, as SCVO note, if it's to be meaningful and effective, devolution must be driven by the people of Scotland, and that there must be opportunities for the public to influence the process and contribute their views. The report states as a key recommendation that further public engagement directly with the people of Scotland, as well as representative bodies, charities, industry groups, voluntary bodies, is still a vital activity that needs to be carried out and is fully committed to the spirit of the recommendation made by the Smith Commission in this respect. The committee calls upon the UK and Scottish governments to consider how to commit to the spirit of the Smith Commission's recommendation in this respect. Now, the committee did what it could in this regard, got out and about and had meetings and engaged where possible, but I'd like this Parliament and that of the UK to consider properly how to broaden meaningful consultation. And I'd urge the government to look at things like citizens' juries, consensus conferences, and a method called charrettes has been used, as colleagues will know, in the planning system in Scotland with some success. And these techniques are used across the world to help solve complex problems without top-down imposition by the so-called experts. And as colleagues have stressed today, one of the complex problem areas is welfare devolution. At FMQs last week, my colleague Patrick Harvey spoke of the tangible level of fear among so many people in the face of cuts to what remains of the welfare state. And the Engender briefing for today sets out starkly how gendered the cuts have been. Since the coalition government started cutting, 85% of the money saved from tax and benefit changes has come from women's pockets. Well, we want to fix these wrongs that are harming women, children and vulnerable people. But there are genuine concerns that we won't get the devolution of welfare right, and our job hasn't been made easy by the complex devolution agreement, which potentially could make things even more confusing for people. The committee report has important recommendations to make sure we're able to create a system that works. And on top of that, women and those in receipt of benefits need to be much more involved in the design. Engender are calling for the administration of universal credit to be devolved early with a Section 30 order. And Jim McCormack also pointed out that we need much improved intergovernmental working if we're going to manage these really important areas of shared responsibility like welfare properly. Greens called for and welcomed agreement on the proposals for devolution of unconventional gas licensing, fuel poverty and energy efficiency programmes and formal consultation on energy policy. And I agree with much of what the First Minister said yesterday on energy policy. Scotland needs a stronger voice. The Scottish Government has a moratorium on fracking, but there should be no delay on the public consultation. It's time for a complete ban and no delay on devolving the licensing regime. And the Crown Estate, as we've heard, is another area where the draft clauses don't deliver the Smith Agreement. For some reason, the proposed method of devolution is convoluted, described by land reform expert Andy Whiteman as opaque, complex and unnecessary. I strongly support the devolution of Crown Estate away from Holyrood, but there's no need for overly complex preconditions in an already complex settlement. The draft clauses do, in effect, allow 2 Crown Estates in Scotland, with one managed by commissioners in London and one managed by whatever sort of local devolution scheme is established. This is entirely at odds with the spirit of the Commission and must be rectified. Presiding Officer, I welcome colleagues' openness to the idea of building on Smith. There is too much to cover here, but I'll end on a final point that devolution must not stop at Holyrood. I wasn't campaigning for a mini Westminster in Edinburgh, and if the last couple of years have taught us anything at all, then surely they've taught us that we need to trust our local authorities, our communities and our people with more power. Thank you.